Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you. Thinking about the context of this whole series, I was reflecting a little bit on my personal past relationships. My first official girlfriend, was in 5th grade. And the reason I say official is because in 3rd grade, there was Rachel who lived down the street, and we would drop letters in each other's mailboxes, like notes, but we never spoke in person. So I don't know if that one counts. And in kindergarten, there was this girl named Olivia. She told my mom that we got married in kindergarten. I don't remember getting married, so I don't know if that one counts either. But in 5th grade, I had just moved from Cleveland to Austin, and this girl came up to me on the playground, and she said, "Hey, do you want to be Kelsey's boyfriend? Do you want to be Kelsey's boyfriend?" And I said, "Who's Kelsey?" And she pointed out Kelsey on the other side of the field, and I said, "Yes, I'll be Kelsey's boyfriend." And that was how our relationship began. Over the course of our 5th grade relationship, we didn't speak again. Well, we didn't speak that day. We didn't speak at all, except for one day that I went to Schlitterbahn with her whole family. So like her mom, dad, sister, like we'd never hung out before. Awkward 5th grade me. It was one of the weirdest days of my life. And then a couple weeks after that, 6th grade started, and that was the one conversation I had with Kelsey, and I said, "Hey, I think we should just be friends." And that was the beginning of the relationship for me. The ironic part is I actually, a couple years ago, got to officiate her wedding. So it's a little bit weird how like the world works like that. But anyways, that was the first official girlfriend. And it's funny because I think for me, like, I don't know what I expected, but I just thought there would be this like gradual like line where I would just follow the next step and relationships would just be great and it would always just keep getting better. But nobody ever told me what the steps were. Like there's no class, there's no book where we just kind of figure it out. And I think for me, and probably for a lot of you guys, sometimes relationships feel a lot more like this, like no gradual straight line that's just getting better, but it's like chaos. Because you just never know. It's like, okay, well, like we're like DMing and like, I think this is like a thing. I think it's more, but I'm not really sure because neither of us have actually ever said it. And then it's like, well, we're definitely talking, right? Like friends wouldn't do this, but like nobody's spoken about it. And I think I'd be frustrated if they're talking to somebody else, but like it's not official. And then at some point along the way, like we're dating and maybe we had a conversation, like maybe he asked you out, but maybe he didn't. Now you're just kind of official and you're not sure. And nobody gives us a guidebook to say this is the next stage, or this is how you do it, or this is when you know that it's time. And that's not an instinct that we have. Like, it's not an instinct that we know someday we desire to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Like, that's a cultural phrase. 100 years ago, there were no boyfriends and girlfriends in the United States. Like, that's a cultural thing. But somehow, somebody along the way tells us what it is that we're supposed to do. But here's the challenge with that. We tend to enter into the next stage of our relationships with no real preparation. We haven't like prepared for this stage. We haven't gotten ready and been intentional for it. And if in any other area of our life that's important, that matters to us, this would be crazy. Like in any other important area of our life, this would be an incredible risk, right? If you were to think about, for example, if you were to go get a major surgery, okay, if you were to go to the doctor, and the doctor, you have that initial meeting, that kind of like initial consultation, and the doctor and his whole team are looking at you, and he's like, "Hey," I think we have a picture, but the doctor's like, "Hey, I'm going to prep you on what it is that, you can expect." And the team's there, and you're like, "Okay, what's the recovery time like?" And the doctor says, "You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really sure, because I don't know what we're going to take out." And you're like, "Wait, time out. Have you done something like this before?" He's like, "Nope. No, I've never had a surgery. Did you go to school for this? Nope, never went to school for this. But my friends told me I deserved a job like this. They told me I'd be great at a job like this, so I took the job, and here I am." You're like, "Wait, what?" And you're like, yeah. The doctor's like, "I'm just going to cut you open, and then I'm going to do what feels right. I'm going to follow my heart, and when I see the organ I need to take out, I'll just know it. Trust me." You wouldn't just freak out. You would run. You would run in the opposite direction. You wouldn't let that person anywhere near you, right? But in relationships, which is the person we're going to let have most access to our life, we go into them a lot of times with no intentionality and no preparation. So I want to talk about that tonight. Because at some point, lack of preparation will catch up to you. It will affect you. You can kind of coast for a while in some messy relationships with no preparation and no intentionality, but eventually it will catch up to you. I think about for me, like in college, I don't know what it was. I don't mean this in like an arrogant way, but like math was always the easiest subject for me growing up. Like it just made sense in my head. I didn't have to study for a math test. Like 2 apples plus 2 apples, 4 apples, it made sense. It started to get confusing to me when the alphabet met numbers, and I was like, that's never happened. That's like party foul because my whole life, no numbers have been involved. And then, algebra started, but it was okay. And then I got to college, and there started to be these things called integrals and derivatives. Those are calculus words, is scary words if you're in calculus. But I had no idea what was happening, but I still approach it the way I'd always approached math. So I showed up in college and I sat down on my first test of college and just took the test, didn't study, and I got a 68 on the test, okay? Now, that might sound good for not studying, but the problem in college is your whole grade is just tests, right? So there's 3 tests and a final, and that's it. No homework, no quizzes, nothing like that. I'm like, okay, I'll pay attention. I'll actually go to class now, so I'm going to sit in class. I take test number 2, and I get a 56. And I'm like, shoot, I'm going to fail like my first class of college. That's thousands of dollars like gone. I need to do something different because I never knew what it was like to prepare and to actually study. And then I went to class. I actually met the TAs. I met my professor. Like all this kind of stuff was good moments. I did the homework that was optional homework. I took the quizzes that were optional quizzes. I'd never done this stuff in my life, but I decided to do it for the first time. I got an A on the 3rd test and then on the final as well. I ended up walking away with like a C+ or something like that. So I kind of scraped through and got the credit. But for me, I could have done so much better. I could have done better if I prepared, and if I never prepared, if I didn't take the step to say like, okay, I need to get intentional about this, it would have had really big consequences for me. I want to talk about why preparing is such a big deal, and it's an idea that you see throughout the New Testament, specifically when it comes to relationships as well. In fact, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9, he says, run, or do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Meaning your goal should be to win. Like your goal should be to get the prize, to get the reward. Why would we not work hard? He says, look at everyone else around you. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. He's saying, hey, people that don't believe that God is real, which perhaps that's some of us in the room, but he's saying people that don't even believe God is real, they work crazy hard. And when you think about what they're training for, it's like at best some more money. Maybe it's like a physical trophy or like your name on a list somewhere that 100 years from now, nobody's even going to remember. And yet they exhaust themselves and work really hard. You who believe that you have a bigger purpose for your life, you believe that your impact on relationships now ripples into eternity. Why would you not prepare 10 times that? Why would you not work as hard as you can? So he says, therefore I, Paul, run like someone running, do not run like someone running aimlessly, like just all about zigzagging all over the place. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. It's like, I don't want to miss what life has for me. I don't want to miss what God has for me. I don't want to see him face to face someday and say, I wasted my life. I want to say I gave everything I had because I know that what I was doing rippled into eternity. I want to hear, well done, my son, well done, good and faithful servant from God. I want to do that someday. And so for him, this idea of running the race is incredibly important. And the reason that I put that on top is because before we can talk about the stages of a relationship, I think it's important just to put it in its context. Some of us make relationships the number one thing in our lives, right? Like when we're single, it's all we can think about is getting a boyfriend, getting a girlfriend, how lonely we are. When we're dating, we can become obsessed. I've done that before. We can become obsessed with the person on the other side of us, even to the exclusion of friends or at the exclusion of our values or all of those kinds of things. And we really think like if we're not happy, the problem is with our significant other or lack thereof. But this is just one thing in our life. Money can be that way as you get older. Status, success, there's so many things that we can place number one. But Paul is saying, wait, you've got a bigger race that you're running. There is a purpose to your life. And this amazing thing that God has created called relationships, well, it can help you in that journey. But relationships in itself is not the end goal. What I want to do today is I want to take a stab at talking about all of the phases of relationships in about 30 minutes, which is a little bit ambitious. But as you guys have been submitting questions throughout the series, we got questions about every single one of these stages. And I just don't know if we've ever had the conversation to say, this is the goal or this is the why behind each one of these stages. I'm going to focus on the single stage a little bit more than the others because we're going to talk about dating a little bit more next week, and I just know that these feel far down the road right now. But ideally, the end goal for a lot of us is going to be that, so I want to hit them too. We're going to focus on this first one today, and I want to introduce you guys to somebody that might be helpful. His name is Ben Stewart, and the reason I want to talk about him is just because he led a ministry at Texas A&M called Breakaway. A couple thousand people would fill an arena every Wednesday night at Texas A&M. He led it for like 10 years. Now he's at a church in Washington, D.C., but a lot of the content I'm going to share tonight comes from this guy. So partly just doing the right thing, it's not plagiarizing. I want to let you know a lot of the ideas come from him. But also, if you're interested in it at all, he does a 6-part series called Single, Dating, Engaged, and Married. It's like 5-6 hours of content. If you're that kind of person that's into that, that could be a way to build on that. Today, we're only going to talk for about 30 minutes or so. But I want to start with the single conversation, okay? Specifically, I want to talk about what are the purposes or what are the big ideas or what is that we're looking for when we're single. And one of the advantages to being single is you have time that you do not have in any other stage of a relationship. If you are dating somebody right now, you know this. If you have a friend who is dating somebody, you know this. Just the amount of time that you spend texting or snapping or FaceTiming or calling or hanging out with them in person is pretty tremendous when you think about it. It's hours of your day every day, I promise you. If you're like self-controlled with it, it's hours of your day every day. In fact, it's estimated you could read probably about 250 books in a year in the time that you spend with your significant other. Just dating. That's before you've even married them. That's just something that is interesting to think about, right? The average American spends 10,000 hours playing video games before you turn 21 years old. We have a lot of time in this stage that we can choose what we want to do with. It takes half that time to get a college degree. It takes about that time to learn a new language. There are a lot of things. You could start a business in that time. There are a lot of things that you could do in that window, and we just have more of it when we are single. And as a result, you also have more freedom. I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all towards Emily, but since I've been married, I have less freedom about what to do with my time. When I was in college, I honestly don't know how I filled it. I was in class like 12 hours a week. That's a full-time college student. The rest of my time, I don't even know what I did. I would come home, I would watch the same rerun of ESPN like 3 times until my roommates got home. Then we would play a bunch of video games. Then I would do a little bit of homework. Then I would like search for ramen somewhere around the apartment. And then I would like binge watch a TV show for a while and then try to finish my homework. And then I like go out and go downtown and stuff. Like there was so much time to fill. It was crazy. I thought I was busy. I really did. I thought I was busy. But now, I don't watch as much ESPN. I don't play as many video games. If you think, man, one day, like, I'm so excited to be married, and it is. It's incredible. It's amazing. But I'm so excited to be married to, find him or to find her, dudes. Like, when you come home, at the end of the day, she is going to want to talk to you. She's going to want to ask you, how was your day? And fine does not cut it. You're going to have to use actual words to talk to her about how your day was. And then she's going to want you to ask her how her day was. And you are going to have to listen with your whole face, like you are going to have to lock in. And then she's going to say something that somehow triggers you to think about LeBron James, and she's going to know the second you've left the conversation. And she's going to say, hey, what are you thinking about right now? And it's like, thinking, LeBron, you? I don't know. And it's confusing. But there's a new time that you have to invest that it's just different. I think it's better, but it's different, right? You have a different kind of freedom. Ladies, you're thinking about that guy, this incredible guy, this dream guy. He's amazing. He's good looking. He's going to take care of all these things. He's wonderful. But he's probably going to have a level of cleanliness that is not just unclean, it's unsafe, right? Like that's probably what you're heading towards. And you're going to wonder if he understands you and if he gets you when you're talking to him, talking about how you are. And he probably doesn't because he's a guy. I don't know if you've met one before, but if you know us, like things that just feel like they should make sense to you, they just don't. We just are slower in the process, and you gotta have some patience with us. And I can't explain to you exactly why that is, but there are things that seem like, man, it's gonna be so exciting when we get there that you are actually gonna be constricted on this beautiful thing of freedom and time that you have when you are single. Here's the other thing that you can do when you're single. You can invest in you, and you can invest in something bigger than you. You can choose to develop who you are today, your character today. You can start a great career today that's going to impact your family someday, your interests, your hobbies today, your character. You can invest in all those things now and something bigger than you. I was in this role when I was not married, and it was not nearly as hard to think about all the weekend things that we have throughout the year. W3, which is a middle school camp that we have, is one weekend. My Life is a weekend camp here. Boot Camp, Camp 75, Captain's Camp. We have an intern retreat. There's a conference we go to every year in Atlanta. There's all these weekends that I spend away, and when I wasn't married, that was super easy to do. I could invest in something big and important that's happening here. But when I got married, every single one of those is a weekend away from Emily, and it infringes on our time, and it's more difficult, and it's more of a sacrifice than it's ever been before. You can invest in big, important things in your single stage of life. Paul says this stage is such a big deal and it's so important. Look what he says in 1 Corinthians. He literally says, I wish everyone were single, just as I am. Paul, who wrote half of the New Testament, he never got married. He was single that whole time. He said, I wish all you were single, just as I am. Yet each person has a special gift from God of one kind or another. He says, but there are things that we bring to the table, and some of us, there's reasons for us to be in relationships. He says, I think it is best to remain as you are. If you have a wife, do not seek to end the marriage. If you do not have a wife, do not seek to get married. But if you do get married, it is not a sin. And if a young woman gets married, it is not a sin. What he is saying is the stage you're in right now is really the best stage for you because it's where God has you. And don't become obsessed with thinking the grass is greener in a different stage. The stage you are in right now will not last forever. You will not, if you have this perspective of running the race, you will not be single forever. Okay, you will start dating someday, or you'll be in your 90s and you'll pass away, but you're not going to be single forever. Like that stage is going to end, right? You're not going to be dating forever. You're going to get engaged or you're going to break up. You're not going to be engaged forever. You're going to get married or it's going to end. You see how this goes. Every stage is beautiful for certain reasons, but none of them are the end goal. So why would we heighten any one of these? He's just saying, hey, where God has you is the best place for you. He says, but those who marry, in the next verse, those who marry will face many troubles in this life, and I want to spare you this. I just think Paul is being real. He's like, marriage problems are a real thing. There are complications. There are difficulties. I don't want you to glorify that stage. But let me say this, my dear brothers and sisters, the time that remains is very short. This feels like such a left turn until you see what Paul says next. Why does he bring time into this relationship conversation? He continues, he says, so from now on, those with wives should not focus only on their marriage or only on your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Those who weep or rejoice or who buy things should not be absorbed by their weeping or their joy or their possessions, meaning our circumstances or our stuff. Those who use the things of the world should not become attached to them. For this world, as we know it, will soon pass away. If you have ever played a sport, if you've ever been in any kind of competition or watched one, you know that you play the game different based on the time remaining. Right? You know that that's true. You play the game different based on the time remaining. If it's the fourth quarter and you're behind or you're ahead, you have a completely different strategy. You pass more, you run more, you call timeouts, etc. You have a different strategy. He's saying, hey, the time is limited on all of these. So be intentional and make the most of every single one of these stages. Don't wander about aimlessly. He continues the conversation and he says, I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him. But a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. His interests are divided. It was not until I got married that I was required to have an opinion on pillows and how many pillows that we should have and what color those pillows should be and how those pillows' colors match the other decorations in our living room. And I'm like, oh, who is forcing us to do this? I don't know if I can care. And I'm trying and I'm fighting and I'm like, but this is a brand new thing for me that is like, wow, you just don't think about these things when you're single. Ladies, as he says, it's the same way for you. He says, in the same way a woman who is no longer married or has never been married can be devoted to the Lord and holy in body and spirit, but a married woman has to think about her earthly responsibilities and how to please her husband. I'm saying this for your benefit, not to place restrictions on you. He's saying, I just want you to think about these things. When you think about what is to come, what is best for you and what is it that you are really desiring. In the next verse, this is kind of the summary verse for this whole section. He says, I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best with as few distractions as possible. I just want to read it again, because again, I think this summarizes the whole section. I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best with as few distractions as possible. If you're in here and you're like, I don't know what I believe about God yet, maybe it's just I want you to do whatever is going to serve this bigger purpose or this bigger idea as best as possible. Some of us don't serve God very well single. We are pulled in so many directions and so many temptations, and we just don't live well single. And we really might be made sharper and better by somebody who is on the other side of us. Some of you serve God great in this stage, and there's just no need to rush it. That's what he's saying with this section. Whatever stage you're aspiring should be the best, where you just think, man, I can serve God best in this stage. So I said we're going to focus mainly on single, but I want to hit the other couple in our last few minutes. And I want to flip to the dating category. And I think it's important with dating to talk about what it is that you're even looking for. okay? Because some of us, we have so specific our expectations in our list of people. We're like, he's got to be tall, but not like too tall, like he can't be like 6'9", he's got to be like 6'2", 6'1", 6 foot, and he's got to be like strong and fit, but not like too freakishly muscular, but also not like too much dad bod, like, somewhere kind of in between. And then he's got to be funny, but not so funny that he's never serious, because he's got to be, like stop and be calm and listen to me. And our list starts to become so specific that what we're honestly looking for, you wouldn't say it this way, this sounds too churchy or something like that, but what we're honestly searching for when we describe our significant other is we think we're searching for a savior, and we're not. Our significant other can never be that. They can never make us happy and fulfilled in all the ways that we expect to once we find that significant other, right? Somebody who knows this is the organization of Match.com, because Match.com, they had a huge issue when they launched. They let everybody pick all of their preferences, and they realized there wasn't just a zero, it was like a negative correlation between how well people stayed together based on picking what they wanted. Like, we have no idea what we actually want. We have this picture of somebody, and we're super confused on what it is that we even desire and are attracted to. But we're also not looking for the opposite. We're not looking for a servant as well. We're not looking for somebody to just do all these things for us and make us happy and make us feel good. What we're searching for when we're thinking about dating somebody, if you are dating or you want to date in the future, is a companion. It's somebody who is a friend. It's somebody who is going to make you better, and the relationship starts there. The first thing that you're looking for when you are trying to find, do I want to date this person, or am I dating the right person, is you want to make sure that you guys are pursuing the same cause, okay? Cause and preference are not the same. Chinese food, pizza, preferences, right? I like to sleep in, I like to get up early, preferences. I like scary movies, I like funny movies, I like whatever. Those are preferences. Causes are different. Your core belief system, your values are not preferences. Those are causes. Here's why that's a big deal. We had a lot of questions submitted on, is it okay if I'm a Christian to date somebody who is not a Christian? And I want to answer that question directly, okay, for whether that's for you or whether that is for your friends. This is not a question of people's value and worth. Okay, this is not like Christians are better than non-Christians or vice versa. This is not a character thing, okay? There are people of really high character that are Christians and really high character that are non-Christians, and vice versa, okay? This is not that because they're less than or anything like that. This is a question of cause. This is a question of values. Paul says very specifically not to be in a relationship with somebody who is unequally yoked. And a yoke is a picture of this. It's a farming term, and this is the yoke. And he says, hey, an oxen and a donkey would not pull the weight well together, because if you have an oxen and a donkey, you are literally going to go in circles. You are not going to go anywhere in the relationship because you are pulling each other in different directions. And the stronger one's going to win, and the weaker one's going to get hurt, or there's going to be strain in the relationship. Not good people, bad people. That's not the conversation. You literally can't do it. Or he uses all of this race analogy, and I love the race analogy personally, just because this past November I ran in my first half marathon, and the first couple of miles are chaos. The first couple of miles, there are people everywhere. I thought I was going to kill an old lady. I almost stepped on a little kid. Like, it was nuts. You're like dodging and jumping and all this kind of stuff, and there's so much adrenaline. But when you get out to mile like 4 or 5, for the rest of the race, it is weird how in sync you are with the people around you. Because there's over 10,000 people at these things, and you finally get with people that are running the exact same speed you are, and it's like weird. There are hundreds of people all moving at the exact same speed and pace. And the idea that Paul gives us is he's saying, you are running your race. You are pursuing something bigger than you, what God has called you to. And along the way, there may be somebody that you look left and you look right, and you guys realize you're running towards the same goal, and you keep noticing them. You're noticing, man, they're serving in the same place. They're showing up to the same place. They're also in a small group. They'll also have the same values. They also have the priorities. I'm kind of attracted to this person. Like, you realize that you're running the same race. And when you do that, that's a way to align cause, okay? This isn't a question of preference. It's not a thing to just say it's bad. You literally can't. If somebody doesn't have the same values as you, They will not have the same goals. They will not make the same decisions. You will live different lives and pull in other directions. You literally can't do it in the long term. There's a pastor whose quote I love so much, and he says this. He says, "The loneliness of singleness will not be fixed laying next to someone who can't speak to you on the deepest things in life." And if that's a value set of yours that they don't understand, they will never, ever truly understand what's going on with you in here when you try and share that with them. That's why Paul says it's not going to work. He's trying to say what's best for you. So, the second that I want to talk about beyond cause is this idea of character. And the idea of character is just watch what they do, not what they say. Okay? It is so easy to talk a good game and make big promises, but this is an easy one to just watch what they do. If you want to know if he respects women, watch how he treats his mom. Watch how he treats his sister. Watch how he talks about his ex, because there's a chance he's going to talk about you that way in the future. Just watch what they do, not what they say, not what they promise. This goes both directions. Watch their character. And what you will notice over time is that somebody with high character, this always happens. They always become more attractive. Always, always. As you see their character, they always become more attractive to you over time. And somebody with poor character, it does not matter how hot they are when they walk in the room. They always become less attractive to you over time. This is going to matter so much more in the long term. When you're trying to pick a life partner and life gets hard and things come up that you did not expect and somebody gets sick and you lose somebody in your family and somebody goes through a job loss and you're going through financial struggles and going gets tough, in those moments you want with somebody who is high character. And finally, you want to make sure that you have chemistry. I think that this is a weird thing in church world sometimes where you're like, gosh, if you just find somebody, they believe and they read their Bible and they're a nice person, figure it out. Make it work with them. If you go to dinner with him and he makes you want to stab your eyeballs out, don't do that to yourself. There's no reason to do that. You want somebody that you have chemistry with. You want somebody that you enjoy being around. 98% of marriage for Emily is we're in the car together. We're in the kitchen together. We're walking around doing normal life things. That's most of marriage. You want to make sure you enjoy being around them. I could honestly name for you 5 times in the last week that Emily has brought me to the point of tears. She made me laugh so hard. We enjoy being around each other. There's 7.5 billion people on the planet. There is one human I am comfortable dancing around. And one dog and one human. Those are the only, literally, that is true because I feel that comfortable around her. You want somebody that you enjoy, that you laugh with, absolutely. But when you only focus on this at the expense of character and the expense of cause, it is eventually going to end in a lot of heartache. That's the dating section. Here's the last two in a couple of minutes. When it comes to engage, I know this might seem far in the future and all that kind of stuff. Statistically speaking, 95% of us are going to make it here. Actually, that number goes from 94% to 95% at 74 to 75 years old. So 1% of people get married for the first time at 75, okay? You got a lot of hope. There's a long way to go. Don't worry about it. Don't rush it, okay? But the whole idea of this phase is to prepare. Okay? And specifically, I would challenge you to prepare more for life after the 6-hour party than you do prepare for the 6-hour party. Okay? Again, I know this is in the future. I know this doesn't feel like tomorrow or anything. I said earlier, I've had the opportunity to officiate a couple of weddings. They're the most amazing thing to be a part of, one of the happiest days of people's lives. But I never say yes to officiating a wedding unless the couple also agrees to go through premarital counseling. Because I want a relationship with them in that moment, and I want to know that they're going to be willing to fight through the difficult things of life. And so I've had to say no to a couple of those opportunities, which is really hard, but I want to know that they're willing to prepare to life beyond the day. And I will say this about each of those conversations every single time, and it's beautiful to watch, and it's also gut-wrenching to watch. It's difficult to watch. Every single time, couples will bring up something that they've never shared with somebody before. And it seems so often that we think, the things I'm doing in high school, the things I'm doing in college, I just won't have to tell my future spouse about those, or my future spouse won't care. And that's just not true. And I just want you to know that now. In fact, it's more extreme. Now that I know who it is, now that I can picture Emily, the idea of hiding a big area of my life, or the idea of having to share with her things that would make her extremely uncomfortable, that's gut-wrenching. It gets more intense when you know those people, not less. So just know that today you are writing the story today and writing the story in college and things you're dreaming of getting to do then. You're writing the story that you are one day going to share with the most important person in your life in this stage. And then the last stage is this. I know it's a similar word, but now I'm going to put partner instead of companion, because now you are looking for somebody to partner through life with you. Specifically, this is the word we've used throughout this series, this idea of oneness. It is this mystery. It is hard to explain, but your two lives become one life. I mean, you share the same home. Your families become one. Your finances become one. Your interests, hobbies, all these different things start to merge together, and there's this incredible connection and intimacy that is made possible only in the comfort and the safety of that commitment. I'll put this one on here just because you see it throughout the Bible, but kids is a reason to get married, to start a family, and to have kids. That is one of the big reasons. And then I'm just going to put to support, or you could say run, to run your race together, right? This is such a big deal. For me right now, honestly, like genuinely, Emily is going back to school to get her degree to do counseling. Honestly, for me, I think one of the greatest callings of my life, like in this moment, is to support her in that. It is wild, the pieces, the way it's come together. I mean, you think about it, like when she was younger, I've shared her story a lot from stage of how her mom passed when she was young. Counseling was big for her then. Then her dad passed not that much later. Counseling was big for her then. If you guys know her, like her demeanor, how calm, how trustworthy, she can just speak in these wise ways that like don't even offend you. You just know it's true. I mean, it's amazing. I think she's like born for it. And I think thousands of people are going to get help in the future because of what she does. And for me, if that means for a season I have to sacrifice financially, or if I have to sacrifice and do more responsibilities around the house or whatever it is, one of the greatest things God could have me do right now is just to help and set her up for success. And I could get emotional about all the ways that she has supported me and the sacrifices she'd made for me to get to do what I do here. And it's incredible. I think both of us would say we run better together, sharpening each other. There's nobody who's accelerated my character faster than Emily on the other side of me. Some of you may decide you run better single for a long time or forever. But I love the idea of it fitting underneath this concept of running the race. I want to finish just with a definition for you, and we'll break to our small groups. There's a book called The Meaning of Marriage. And again, if marriage is one day potentially the end goal for all of us of this whole crazy relationship thing, even if it feels far away and we're not interested yet, I think it's interesting to look at this definition. Timothy Keller wrote a book called The Meaning of Marriage, and he says this about that person as you're becoming one. He says, to be loved but not known is comforting, but it's superficial. Somebody says they love you right off the bat. I'm not saying love at first sight is not a thing. I'm just saying they don't even know you. It sounds sweet, but they don't really know you. It feels superficial. The opposite of that, though, to be known and not loved, is literally all of our greatest fears. That somebody would know all of us, all of our insecurities, all of our gaps, all of our problems, and they don't love us. That is our greatest fear, and that is the risk in this whole relationship thing. But he says this, to be fully known and truly loved is, well, a lot like being loved by God. It is what we need more than anything. It liberates us from pretense, humbles us of our self-righteousness, and fortifies us for any difficulty life can throw at us. That's the beauty of this commitment, of this type of relationship. And he says the way that we love each other this way is made possible by the way that Jesus has loved us. It's mirroring his relationship with us. Look what he says about Jesus in relation to marriage. He says, when Jesus looked down from the cross, he didn't think, I'm giving myself to you because you are so attractive to me, because you're so beautiful, because you're so amazing. No, he was in agony. And he looked down at us, denying him, abandoning him, and betraying him, which we have all done because we have all sinned and we have all fallen short, and there's nothing that we could do to reconcile that on our own. He says, no, it's not because we look so beautiful, but despite that, he says, and in the greatest act of love in history, he stayed on the cross. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. He loved us not because we were lovely to him, but to make us lovely. And then he finishes the section by saying, that is why I'm going to love my spouse, is what we are to say to our hearts. He says, speak to your heart like that, and then fulfill the promises you made on your wedding day. The way that Jesus has loved us is what makes all of these stages rich and possible. So, bottom line for tonight as we head to our groups is this. Run the race. Live for something bigger. Honor the other runners. Honor the people coming alongside of you. Honor those around you, both friends and more than friends, and you will get a long way in the journey. Let me pray for us before we head to our small groups today. Heavenly Father, God, we are so grateful that you have given us the blueprint. You have given us the design for what healthy relationships look like. God, if we trust you with that, which is so much easier said than done, but if we just trust you with that, the potential is amazing. What it is that you've gifted us with. God, there's so many distractions and so many things that pull us away and so many questions and so many what ifs. And so, God, I just ask that you guide our conversations tonight. That we would realize you first loved us in the way we have the potential to love others. That you would open our eyes to this whole relationship thing you've designed for us and that we would hear specifically from you. God, we love you and we need you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.